Hey guys, I'm back with another video, and this time we are going to talk about how promises works in JavaScript, right? So before I go ahead and start explaining about promises, I think we need to know why do we need promises at first place. And to understand that better, I believe we need to know what is synchronous and asynchronous nature of JavaScript. And once we get to know about it, probably we'll be in better shape to understand why do we need promises and how to make use of it. Right. So let's get started and first try to understand what is synchronous JavaScript code execution. Right. So what really happens in synchronous JavaScript code execution? Your code will be executed line by line, one statement at a time. Right. So think about this code. Suppose I have this function one, and this function two, and this function three. Right. So in case of synchronous JavaScript code execution, first function one will be executed, and then function two will be executed, and then function three will be executed, right? Until unless function one is not getting completed, function two won't start. Until unless function two is not getting completed, function three won't start, right? So this is about your synchronous JavaScript code execution. It will be happening line by line, and until unless this particular function that is running is not getting completed, the next function won't start. This this is what synchronous JavaScript code execution, right? Now there is a problem, right? What is the problem with synchronous JavaScript code execution? Suppose my function one is getting like too much of time to complete it, right? In that case, function two won't start, or probably function two is taking good amount of time. In that case, function three won't start, and in my case, function three is not having any dependency on function two, right? So it's completely independent function. So it's kind of function three is kind of waiting to run, right? Because function two has not been completed. If function two is taking too much of time, right? You can think of a scenario like suppose I'm building one app in which I am trying to show all the orders, right, that user has already placed, right? So I can have some function get user orders, right? It can be some kind of API which will give me all the orders for that particular user, right? So I will show that order on the page, right? And I am having another API that give me the user detail that probably I'm willing to show on the top side of my web app, right? Where probably we see the profile option, and when we click on that, it will show what is your order and probably what you want to log out or something like that, right? So both are completely independent, right? Uh, showing all the order of a user and showing details of a user. But think about if this code is if we are talking about synchronous JavaScript code execution. So if it is taking like 2-3 seconds to complete it. And with this synchronous JavaScript code execution, get user details won't start, right? Ideally, I mean, it's not having any dependency. If my orders are not getting loaded, at least I should be able to show the user detail on the top, right? So there is a problem with synchronous JavaScript code execution, right? So that's where we need asynchronous JavaScript code. I think we understood it, right? So what happens in asynchronous JavaScript code execution? So in asynchronous JavaScript code execution, it is non-blocking code, right? It doesn't wait. It doesn't halt the program execution, right? So suppose I'm having this function one, function two, and function three, and if function two is kind of async code, then function three won't wait for it, right? So now we know if any function is like asynchronous code execution, if any function is like kind of asynchronous code, it won't wait, it won't halt, it is not going to halt the program execution. I mean, function one will execute and function two is taking a good amount of time, then function three will start executing, and function two, whenever the function two is getting completed, it will execute the function two as well, right? So this kind of code execution will be treated as asynchronous code execution. Now question arises, which kind of code is going to be treated as asynchronous code, right? So anything that is going to take time, anything that probably we are not sure when it is going to be completed, will be treated as asynchronous code in JavaScript. And which kind of code it is? Maybe you can think of network calls, right? We don't know what amount of time is being taken by the API that we are going to, right? Uh, I think we know this fetch operation in JavaScript in which you can pass the uh, URL, right? Some resource, something like get todos.com, right? This fetch API, right? we doesn't know how much time is going to be take by this server, right? So it's also going to be treated as asynchronous JavaScript code, right? Things like file input output operation, right? We don't know. I mean, on Node.js server, right? If we are dealing with file input output operation, we don't know how much time is going to be taken while writing the file, how much time is going to be taken while reading the file, right? So this can be also considered asynchronous operation, and probably your set timeout thing, right? We have this set timeout function in JavaScript. So if I just say, right, this we also don't know, right? It's also going to take it is also can be kind of time consuming process, right? After how many millisecond you are giving here, after that it's going to execute it. So it is also going to be categorized as your sync code, right? Now anything that is not being treated as async code will be treated as sync code, right? Now we understand how what is the synchronous code behavior of JavaScript, what is the asynchronous code of JavaScript, right? And behind the scene, how async code is being treated and how the sync code is being treated, what are callback queues, what are event loop, all those things probably I will try to cover in a separate video. But for now, you understand that, right? How async code works in JavaScript, how sync code works in JavaScript. So just to reiterate it one more time, like sync code, I mean, it will be executed line by line until unless first function is not getting completed, the second won't start. But in case of asynchronous nature of JavaScript, if any type of code is asynchronous according to JavaScript, it won't halt the program execution. It will keep going to the next line of code. And once that particular async code is completed, it will probably complete that stuff, right? Okay, now let's try to see some of the async code. So let's see. Uh, I have this console log, and then I have this console log inside set timeout 2 seconds. I just say some timeout here. And then I have console log binary. Now let's see what happens. So this console.log here, it's kind of synchronous code, right? It will execute here. Now this set timeout is asynchronous, right? It's time taking process, right? It will execute after some time, right? So we cannot halt the nature. We cannot halt the program execution, right? So of JavaScript, right? So it won't wait for this, right? It will come to another line of code. It will print the by, and after 2 seconds, it will print the console log. So output should be hey by, and then after 2 seconds, right? I will create a separate video in which I will be exactly showing, right, how on which queue it is getting put this set time out callbacks, and how this probably event loop works behind the scene. How do we deal with the synchronous nature of JavaScript behind the scenes, right? That is entirely different topic. So I will cover in some different video. But for now, we can understand from this piece of code how the output will be, how the JavaScript will be running the code. So first, it will be running here, and then since it's a synchronous code, it won't wait for it, and then probably it will run this by statement. And after that, after 2 seconds, it will run this after 2 seconds, right? So let's see what is the output. Okay, so it printed here by, and after 2 seconds, right? So far, so good, right? Uh, now, now think about a case. Think about a case, something like I have this get user details function, something like that, right? Or probably I can create a function get user or, right? So get user orders, probably it can be a function which is making an API call to get the orders of a user. As of now, I don't have any real-time API. So what I can do, I can just mimic that behavior, right, with the help of set time. So what I will do is just set timeout, And probably I'll say after 2 seconds, I'll get my order. This is log. Fetch. Fetch. Okay. So this is my asynchronous JavaScript code, right? After set time. I mean, in set time, we are using set time, right? So now let's try to execute this. Okay, now on the function, just call this function. After 2 seconds, it is printing this. Now I have one more function, uh, uh, which is kind of being used for showing some kind of alert. Uh, and in this, I can just say probably on successful, right? Now, what I want to do, once my orders have been fetched, I want to show some alert, right? Saying that my order have been loaded successfully. Maybe you can think of this function as well as probably uh, I mean, probably you must be thinking like, suppose you are doing any asynchronous operation, you are getting the data and you want to probably show the loader or hide the loader, right? You normally do that, right? Before we make the API call, we show the loader. And once the API call is done, we hide the loader. You can think of this function in that scenario as well. So something or the other, what we are talking about here, we want to execute some function once this async operation has been completed, right? So if I just say this, let's say, I'll just move this function up and I'll just say show alert. Let's see what happens now. Let it refresh. What is the output? It's saying order loaded successfully and then order fetched. So get user orders was asynchronous function. It didn't wait for it, right? It keep executing this show alert function, right? And it has executed this order loaded successfully. But this is not we need. This is not we really needed, right? What we needed was I am willing to execute this show alert function once this async function has been completed. Once I have got my orders from the API, after that I want to execute this function, right? So in the synchronous nature, right, as we are moving toward asynchronous nature of JavaScript, we are facing one issue. What is that issue? how to how to execute something when my asynchronous function has been completed or probably failed. I need to know the status. What was my status of asynchronous operation, right? So as I told you, a use case, right? Suppose you are making API call, you are probably were showing the loader before making the API call, and you want to hide that loader. Or maybe this is the case, right? My orders are getting fetched. Once it has been fetched, I want to show some kind of pop-up or show some kind of alert, right? So we definitely need a way in which I need to know, right, what is the status of my synchronous operation. And I am willing to do some kind of operation post the status of my asynchronous call, right? Async call. So we definitely need a way. What is that way? I can actually pass a callback here, right? Callback function. And what I can do, I can execute this callback function. I think in JavaScript, we know function can be passed as a parameter, right? And I can invoke the function as well. So this would be a reference. I can invoke that reference with a function, right? Now what I can do, I can just pass the show alert function as a parameter to get users order function. Now once this async operation is completed, I'm coming inside this set timeout function. I can execute this callback function, right? So this will be a function reference, and I'm executing this function. I'm executing this function call. Okay. Now let's see what happens. I think that's not refreshed yet. So now the order is correct. So first orders has been fetched, and after that I am showing the alert order loaded successfully. So all good. So somehow or other we are able to execute the some kind of function which I am willing to execute post the uh, completion of my async operation, right? So this is one of the way, right? Making use of callbacks. Now there is one problem. What is the problem? So we are passing show alert as a callback to get user. Now you are asking get user, probably I would say you are requesting get user orders to execute my function. You are indirectly saying that the hey brother, get user function, get user order function. You keep doing whatever the step you are doing, you are making a sync call, that is good for me, but please execute my function as well, right? So you are delegating the job of your alert function to this get user order function, right? I don't think it's a good way, right? Get user order is already having its responsibility to executing his piece of code, and you are bombarding him with additional responsibility of executing another piece of code, right? And what is another drawback? We don't know the status of get user order function. What happens? What if something wrong happens in get user order function? And probably we don't know whether get user order function would be able to successfully execute my function, right? He doesn't give a guarantee. He doesn't ensure that whether I will be able to execute your function or not, because it's not in our control. We are giving the control of executing our show alert function to some other function, right? That's not right. So we definitely need a way in which in a way in which there should be something which can handle the async operation, right? Which can handle the async operation, and post that when your async operation is probably being completed or probably giving some error, it should be able to let us know here. This is what the status is. I executed one async request, and now this is what the status is. So we need a way, we need someone who can probably promise us, okay, you give me your async function, I will execute the async function, I will execute your async function, and once it's probably completed or it failed, I will let you know the status of it, right? So definitely we need someone who can give a promise to us, right? Now that's where promise comes into the picture, right? So as I said, right, we need a way in which first it will execute our async request, and then it will give some status to consumer of it, right? Consumer of it. So consumer, who is the consumer? I am the consumer. I will ask someone, okay, execute the get user order API and give me the status as well, right? So let's see, right, what happens. So I will just remove this callback thing. We don't need callback, right? Now what I will do, I will turn this get user orders to return one promise. As I said, it need to return some promise, right? And how will I return? I will just say return. So return new promise. What is this return new promise? I am just trying to call the constructor of promise class, right? And this will take two parameters. I will come to this later. Okay, right? So get user order, it will return a promise, and it is having two function, callback function, resolve and reject. And whenever my async operation is completed, saying that, okay, it's all success, right? Then I will call the resolve function. And whenever something erroneous is happening, right, in my async call, I will call the reject function. So let's mimic some async call. And just say after 2 seconds. So after 2 seconds, my async call will be success, right? Let's say if it is success, I will call this resolve function. And probably I will just say I can indicate somewhere, right? What I can do, I can say orders successfully fetched, right? Or maybe orders fetched, just like previous code, right? Now this get user orders is returning a promise. And what does promise is? It's just we are just is constructing the promise class, initiating it, and then it also provide a callback function. So whenever your async operation is getting completed, you can use this callback, right? So as of now, I am assuming my promise is oh, sorry, my async call is getting success result, right? Now this is part of your promise creation, right? Promise is being created, right? Now I need to make use of this. I need to consume this promise, right? Now we're consuming the promise, right? So I'll call this function get user orders. And how can I consume the promise? By using then method. And then method, I can also pass a callback, right? Let me just say console data, right? So what I'm doing here, I created the promise. It will initiate the sync call. And once the sync call is completed, it will give me kind of indication of success or failure of my async call. When my async call is success, it will say resolve. That means your async call is successfully completed. And inside then function, if I want to consume this promise, if I want to know about the status of my promise, so this resolve function will call the success callback with the parameters that you are passing in the resolve function. It can be an object, it can be a string, it can be anything, right? It's basically indication of the result. What was the result you get from that async call, right? So as of now, it's just a fake API call. So I'm just saying that order has been fetched. You should be able to pass any object that you're getting from the backend, right? So now let's see what we are getting inside the data. Orders fetched. Now, till the control comes here, right here, we know I got the status as success. I can execute anything that I want, right? Sure. I'll call this sure, right? So let's see. Okay, so resolve. I'll just say console.log data. This is the response I'm getting from my async call, and I am calling whatever I want to do. Order fetch, order loaded successfully, right? Now you can see the difference in callback. What was happening, like, I mean, we were giving responsibility of executing our resultant function into some other function, but here is not the case, right? Get user order is altogether a different function, and as it is returning a promise, I am using then to get me the result of my sync operation. That's how we use it, right? So we understood, right? So this is a promise creation. We'll use a new promise object, sorry, new promise class to initiate it. And it gives us flexibility to call the resolve and reject function. And once you call the resolve function, it will call the first callback of this then function, right? That is your first callback. Now what happens, there might be the case when there is some error in your API call, maybe some backend error, or maybe that API is not found or something like that, right? We can always reject the promise. Uh, we can say some error occurred, right? Some error occurred. Now, what happens when you reject the promise? When we reject the promise, we can catch that thing, we can catch the data in the catch block. So if you see console log, if I just say data, so it is printing the some error, right? Now I can do conditionally showing the alert, right? I can have those conditions in showing alerts, right? Something like if success, something like that. If it is success, else I'll just say order couldn't load. Let's say console log. occurred in the orders. Okay, so yeah, we just have one support button. Okay, so now what we can do, we call the get user orders, and if I can pass anything, right? Something like I can actually pass a Boolean flag and right, something like I can handle anything right here. If data is true, then probably show the alert, right? And if promise is getting rejected, I'll just say resolve true. True is kind of indicator, right? That my orders are getting successfully loaded, right? So that alert came, right? And if I just say reject, with the reject, it will always go to catch block. So I will just say show but false, right? Somewhere I'm loading the orders, right? Okay, so so you can see, right, that code is also readable, right? Code is promise code is kind of more readable rather than the callback, right? And also we are not giving additional responsibility. We are keeping the job of I mean, if get user order job should be to get the orders only, should not interfere with any other thing, right? And show alert job should be showing the alert, right? So code of subscription is also good, right? In case of promises, right? One thing I wanted to show you guys, suppose, um, let's see if I am keeping this function some variable, get promise, something like that, get promise, okay. And let's say I have promise execution, something kind of variable. I'm calling this get promise here, right? So this is a function. Get promise will invoke this function, right? And promise execution will be having this promise object, right? And let's see what happens now, right? So let it resolve for now. Let's see. Okay, now let's see what happens. So here we are going to talk about what are the promise states, right? I'll just promise, or maybe I will say my promise, promise execution. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay. So what is happening? Let's see. Let's refresh the page. Get promise. So get promise will call this function and it will return a promise. Let's see what is happening on promise execution, right? So at first, see the state of the promise. It's pending, right? Now async call will start happening, right? This set time will start happening. Now after 2 seconds, it got resolved, right? and it is coming inside this if block, and we are again, I think I should have printed promise execution. So if you see, right, promise execution, what is the value of promise execution, right? So previously it was pending state, was previously promise state was pending. Now once my async task has been completed, the promise state has been changed to fulfilled, right? So you need to understand that how this promise state changes, right? So once you initiate a promise, right? Once you, as soon as you initiate a promise, that promise state will become pending. Once your async operation has been completed, your promise state will become fulfilled, right? And promise result, basically, what is the result of your async call, right? What is the result of your async operation? Is the same thing which you are going to resolve it, what you are going to get from your DB, what you're going to get from your API call, basically, right? So, so you see that, right? Okay, I'm not sure why this catch got executed. Just a minute. I did resolve true, and let's see what is happening. Okay. Promise execution result true. It has true. Show alert. It's going to true. Oh, so this is this code is having some error. That's where it is getting executed because promise is kind of promise is not defined, right? So okay, I'll just see. I'm not sure why did I use this name. That's my mistake. So I'll just say promise execution. Okay, so let's try to run this. Get promise execution. Let's see what is the state. Promise state is pending. Now, after 2 seconds, my async operation has been completed. It will resolve. We'll come to here. It will show some alert, right? Okay, I'll do one more time. I forgot to debug what was the state. Now you see the promise execute. It has been fulfilled. The value has been true, right? So here comes another interesting part, right? If someone is asking you about the definition of promise, right? Now you have an answer. You can say promise is an object which for which the value is going to be filled when your async operation has been completed. When I say completed, it can be either success or it can be either failure. So it's kind of object which will be eventually completed at some point of time when you're depending on when your async operation is going to be success or failure, right? So it's kind of object which will be fulfilled eventually, right? All good, right? Now one more thing, right? So we can also handle the rejection of promise in the error blockers. So what is this error block? Console.log inside error block. Let's say error, right? So if we resolve after our async operation completed, it will hit the first callback. And this data, this the params of this function is going to the same we are going to pass here, right? So if I just say uh, testing, sorry, success, it will just say success here. I'll just remove the code here for now. No, okay. See, string success. Okay. Now, if I reject the promise, if I reject the promise and say some error occurred, we'll see what happens. What happened? Error is not defined. Okay, I need to use this error, right? inside error block some error happen, right? So you can always you can always handle your rejections of promise inside the error block. So first callback of then function is a success callback, and uh, second is basically to handle your rejection of the promises, right? So we learn about how to create the promise. We learn about how to consume the promise. We also learn about how to handle the success and probably how to handle the resolve and the rejection of the promises, right? Now there is one more thing. Uh, we call it finally, right? Finally function. What does it do? Uh, console. I don't know. I'm going to execute finally. And can be executed in line. So doesn't matter if your promise is getting resolved or rejected, it will be called. Finally is something it will be always, it's going to be called every time, right? So as you saw, right, you rejected the promise. So error callback, first control came into the error callback and then it called the finally block as well, right? And let's see if I resolve the promise. Let's see, I'm saying success. Correct. And it is within that, right? So finally is going to be executed. No matter you are resolving the promises or you are rejecting, right? You can think of a use case, right? Suppose you are showing some kind of overlay in your page, right? And normally what happens when your API is in progress, you keep showing the overlay. But think about the case when your API is not responding, so you cannot keep the overlay on all the time because you won't be able to perform anything if the overlay is on the page, right? So your job is to hide the overlay, probably, or hide the some kind of big lotus on the screen, right? Whenever there is a success from the sync call or there is a failure as well, right? So this can be one of the use case of finally, right? Okay, so far so good. Now let's try to learn some more things, right? So suppose let's go back to a use case. Suppose I am having this uh, get user orders function, um, which can be real-time API to get the orders for a user, right? So I can mimic that relation with this setup function. So, set timeout and I'll just say consumer block. Fetch. Okay. Now, now what I want to do, I have another function. So what does it do? Suppose I have suppose as a user I am able to see my orders, right? So in normally some of this what happens when you have when you have filled your cart with all the items, right? So try to apply some coupon as well behind the scene, right? Whether you are applicable for the coupon or some kind of coupon or not, right? So I'm just making a function which will probably decide if there is any coupon available or not, right? And for that also it can be async in nature, and we might be doing API call to get to know which kind of coupons are available for these users and with the relevant orders. So I'll just say also now coupon applied. And when my all coupon has been applied, all everything has been done, probably I want to go ahead with payment process, right? And again, let's say I'll just make it 1 second. 2 seconds. Okay. Okay, it looks good. Process, right? So now what I'm willing to do. So finally, what should happen, right? When you have selected item, and when I'm launching my orders tab, right, on some shopping cart app, right? So we should be able to load the orders, and once it load the orders, it should then calculate the coupon, right? And once it has calculated the coupon after and the rate has been decided, then the payment should be processed, right? So it is having some kind of dependency. Until unless uh, we are not seeing the orders for a user, we should not go ahead with applying the coupon. Until unless we have not applied all the coupons on that card, we should not go ahead with the payment processing. So it's kind of dependency. First, this function should get completed, and then this apply coupon, and then this, right? So I think think about the case, right? Now for promises for some time now, think about the cases how we were dealing similar thing with the callbacks, right? So suppose if you want to execute something after get user, sorry, what happened? Sorry, suppose if I want to execute something of after some async call, right? We can use the callback, right? So I can say um, on the callback, right? And I can fix on this function. Now something if I want to execute after the coupon has been applied, and call the callback. So I'm not talking about promises, and I'm still on the callbacks, right? I am trying to show what the problem, what one more problem was with callback, right? I had shown I had discussed some of the problems in the callback, and that's where we had to move towards the promises. I will show one more problem with the callbacks now, right? And then probably how promise will rectify it, right? So I'll just call the coupon callback, right? And probably payment callback, payment callback. Sounds good, right? So now what I'll do, I will actually get your functions and then pass the callback function. So get user order function will execute this API call and will execute this callback function, right? And inside this callback, I will execute apply coupon, right? Apply coupon, right? And apply coupon. So using the right get user orders, I am passing this callback function, right? And this guy will execute this callback function, right? And once it's get executed, I can call this apply coupon function, right? And after this, I can just say process function, right? And finally, when everything is done, I can say done is order, order, right? Now let's try to execute this. What happens? Let's see. Order fetch, open applied. Okay. Payment process all done. Thanks for your order. Right. Now, if I need to deal multiple asynchronous operation one after another, right? This is how we can do with the callbacks, right? What we really done, we call the get user order function, we passed one callback. Inside one callback, we are calling another async function, and inside the callback, we are calling another async function. Now, if you see, there is a problem with this code, right? What is the problem you are seeing it? Which kind of problem can we notice here? So if you see the code length of this code, right, this callback function that we are using here is going to increase horizontally. where each async operation is nested inside the callback of previous async operation, right? So first it is going to be increased horizontally. The readability is not quite good, right? And also, if you see, think about the error handling, how you can do the error handling with this, right? I mean, if you want to handle the errors, what happens in get user orders and what happens with apply movement, it's going to be difficult and it's not readable as well, right? So it clearly looks right. This thing, right, is it's not quite manageable or it's not looking good as well because it's growing horizontally. It's hard to debug, and I feel when it comes to unit testing, it will be even more difficult to test to mock all those things, right? So this is something called in JavaScript callback hell, right? Where each async operation is nested inside callback of the previous one, right? So this is kind of, I think some people called it pyramid of doom, like because if you see the shape, it is going like a pyramid, right? So this is certainly not a good approach. So now what do we want to do, right? What do we how do we handle these things with promises, right? So let's do this, right? So when it comes to promises, no need of callbacks. I'll just remove callbacks. Okay, I'll just remove this as well. Okay, so what I will do, I will just convert this function to return promises, right? The way we have done last time, right? Return promise, not in here. This is like do so. So after it's getting resolved, after missing operation is getting completed, we'll just resolve it, right? Similar thing with this. Hmm. This open apply. Okay. Open apply. Let's say it doesn't take much to apply. Let's say 3 seconds at least. Let's say payment. All right. Now you see, we have 3 promises, right? How can I consume these promises, right? This was the promise creation, right? What I will do, get user orders dot return becomes zero. I will just make use then function, right? And I can just say for data. Okay. Um, hmm, okay, so I have consumed this first promise. What I'm doing now, I will return a new promise because I can do anything, right? I have control now inside the I'll call, I'll hit another promise from inside of this, right? Inside of that function. And I can consume it, right? And then now data. And then again, I can return another promise. Payment process. Then and when my payment processing is done, I'll just see what payment message is getting payment promise, and then in line and just say all down things. Okay, one. Okay, good. Okay, so I created multiple promise. What I did after execution of one's promise, right? I returned a new promise, right? Because this is what I need, right? Once my one promise is getting completed, one async operation is getting completed, I need to execute the another promise, right? So now let's try to see what is happening. Auto switch, open applied, payment processing done, all done. Thanks for the order. It's all good. So far, so good.